Hi guys, Olive here. Here today to ask you a favor. My birthday is very quickly approaching, and I decided that since I've been working extremely hard lately, that I would treat myself for my birthday to 2 books off of my wish list. I realize that quite a bit on this channel you see me haul books, but what you may not know is that the vast majority of them, meaning pretty much all of them, are used books or review copies. It is very rare for me to go out and buy a brand new copy from a bookstore or order a brand new copy on a website. And I do have some great looking books on my wish list right now that I would love to have in my physical collection for me to prioritize either late this year or early next year. The problem is that all of these books look incredible, hence why I put them all on my wish list, and I just can't choose between them. It's like choosing a favorite child. So that's where you come in. I am going to give you a little bit of a tour through my wish list, tell you what each is about, tell you why I put it on my wish list in the first place, and then after you've seen them all, I would love for you to vote on the 2 books you think I should buy down in the comments. My books wish list lives on a site called Giftful. I've started using this site fairly regularly and I really like it so far. One of the many reasons why I chose it is that you have the option to disable the ability for other people to claim a gift for you. I don't know if any of you were around BookTube in late 2014, but there was this whole controversy about booktubers putting Amazon wish lists in their description box or giving it to their viewers in general. When viewers were kind enough to send them gifts, it made people feel kind of weird, like the booktuber was asking for gifts from people. I personally saw it both ways because I know people are interested in what's on a booktuber's wish list. I am super nosy. I want to know what's on everyone's wish list. But then I could totally see how it would come across that the booktuber was asking for books. So I want to be entirely clear here. I am not asking for books. I am a grown woman. I can afford my own books. You will not have the ability to buy me books through this wish list. I simply want to show you around my wish list in case you are interested, and also to help me pick the 2 books that I'm going to buy for my birthday. So now that all of that is out of the way, let's take a look at my wish list.
So this is my books wish list on Giftful. I really like this site because you can have multiple wish lists. You can link to external sites. Amazon used to let you do that and it doesn't anymore, which is really annoying. So I'm going to click on each one of these, tell you a little bit about the book and why it caught my attention, why I want to buy it versus getting it out of the library or something similar. I'm sure you've had a little bit of a look at this first page since I've been talking, but let's go into timefulness. How thinking like a geologist can help save the world. So what interested me about this book is that it argues that understanding the Earth's rhythms, understanding the ground beneath our feet, all the history behind it, can help us going forward. Humans have only existed for a very brief time in the history of this planet, so we need to understand what happened before us, and then we need to understand what our actions right now will cause to happen later on, especially if we keep going unchecked. So as you can see, it has a beautiful cover, and if you go back here to the overview, you can see that it is illustrated, which is one of my favorite things in nonfiction books. So that's how this landed on my wish list. Then we have this charming one right in the middle. I actually first saw this book on my friend Alex over at Hey Little Thrifter, her Instagram page. She had posted a picture of this book and I knew I needed it immediately. For some reason, I am so, I'll say weirdly interested in books on disease. You can pause the video and read the overview if you like, but it's basically saying that in the 19th century, there was an explosion of epidemics with all different people moving to cities and being in close contact. And for medical textbooks in those days, they would rely very heavily on medical illustrations. So this book gives lots of different examples of those medical illustrations. I'll show you some images here. Obviously, this book is not going to be for those types of people who don't want to see those types of images, which is totally understandable. But for whatever reason, I love books on disease, like I said. I don't know why, considering I'm the type of person who faints when they give blood, but these are the mysteries of my personality. Moving on to something more palatable, let's go into The Secret Life of the American Musical, How Broadway Shows Are Built. I recently went up to Boston for a visit, and while we were there, we obviously had to go to the bridal bookshop. That is basically a requirement of going to Boston. And when we were looking around, this book was on the intake pile, so they had just received it, but it had yet to be priced. I already had a few books in my hands, and we were trying to not buy too many books since we were flying to a few different places. We didn't want to have extremely heavy luggage. So I decided not to ask the people at the store to price this for me so that I could buy it. I decided I would just put it on my wish list and look into getting it at another time. The title of this one is pretty self-explanatory, but this is all about the history of the American musical, how one is created. And down below in the overview, I also read that this book is structured like a musical, begins with an overture and concludes with a curtain call with stops in between for I Want songs, conditional love songs, production numbers, star turns, and finales. I think that's so amazing. Next is Vanishing Fleece, Adventures in American Wool by Clara Parks. Fun fact, I am choosing not to have my own natural children. We may adopt, that's a different story. But when I was considering having children many years ago, I always thought that if I had a daughter, her name would be Clara, because that was the name of my great aunt, who I loved very much, and I just love the name in general. Anyway, let's look at this book. I first heard about this book when Kazan over at Always Doing talked about it in one of her upcoming releases videos that she does. She had a whole video talking about upcoming nonfiction books. I always pay attention when she posts those. This is a memoir of how the author spent a year of her life seeing how fleece from a sheep transforms into saleable yarn that you see in a store. To do so, she traveled all across the country, following that wool from place to place as it goes through the different processes to make it the finished product that we see in a store. And obviously, along the way, she meets lots of different people who are involved in those different stages. Like I said, this book is a memoir, but obviously you've got some travel writing in there. You're probably going to have some nature writing since this does come from an animal originally. I don't know. It sounded absolutely fantastic, and I would really like to read it. Next, we'll move to The Unexpected Genius of Pigs by Matt Wyman. This one I could not find on Barnes & Noble, so we have to go to Amazon. So I was attracted to this one for two main reasons. The first is that I really enjoyed the book The Genius of Birds by Jennifer Ackerman, and this title reminded me of that. The second reason is that pigs are amazing creatures. I only know a little bit about them, and from that little bit that I know they are lovable, they are smart, they are social, they are playful. So I would love to learn more. Next up is How to Treat People, A Nurse's Notes by Molly Case. Another fun fact, I requested this on NetGalley. They did not want me to have it. Anyway, this is a memoir of the author's experience having a life-changing operation herself and then being inspired to go into the nursing field for that reason. I think people who work in the medical industry are superheroes. The training that they undergo is intensive, as it should be. The work is hard, and it is so important in our society. I would never be able to do their job, and I have so much respect for them. My stepsister works within the industry, as does my sister. So I cannot wait to read this. That's why I requested an ARC, but I don't care if they give it to me or not. I want to get my hands on this book. Next up is a book called Homing, On Pigeons, Dwelling, and Why We Return by John Day. The reason why I got interested in this book is because Helen McDonald both wrote about this book for the TLS and then went on their podcast to discuss this book. This is her article. I will link it down below for you, but she spoke extremely highly of this book, and I've said it before that I will do pretty much whatever that woman tells me to. I think she is amazing. So if she loved this, I am very positive I'm going to love it. It's now on my wish list. Scroll down the page a little bit here. We have Forgotten Women, The Scientists. This book is part of a series that talks about the histories of women in different professions who may not have made history books but were just as important. Scrolling down here, you can see they have one on leaders, on scientists, artists, writers, and I'm sure there will probably be more forthcoming. Chapters include Earth and Universe, Biology and Natural Sciences, Medicine and Psychology, Physics and Chemistry, Mathematics and Technology, and Inventions. That's a pretty good price for the ebook. Consider that option if this book wins. I know I've complained about ebook prices on the Bougie Booktuber tag, but honestly, I don't think that's a bad price for this. Moving on to the first novel on this list. Doesn't that tell you something about what kind of reader I am? This is The History of Living Forever by Jake Wolfe. I first heard Steve Donahue talk about this book, and it sounded so right up my alley. You can see here in the overview, a chemistry student falls for his teacher and uncovers a centuries-old quest for the elixir of life. It sounds like it's part campus novel, part love story, and part science geeky fantasy. All of those things combine to make the perfect type of novel for me, so I really want to read this. Next is Sea Otters, A History by Richard Rivalli. As you can guess, this is a history of sea otters, but I do have a sneaking suspicion that this one is going to be similar to Voices in the Ocean by Susan Casey, where it gives you a natural history of the animal, but then also talks about the human relationship with the animal and basically all the ways that we're exploiting them. I know this is going to be absolutely fascinating. It is, however, I'm seeing now, very expensive. Is it? Yep, it's published by University Press. That would be why. So, not that I don't want to support a university press, but maybe this is one I should hold off on buying and get from the library. Next, another memoir, Old in Art School by Nell Painter. That is a very appropriate last name. So this is a memoir of how the author, who taught history at Princeton for many years, shocked everyone in her life by announcing that she wanted to go to art school after her retirement. So even though I am definitely not an artist myself, I have absolutely no artistic talent. I love reading about art. It probably speaks to the way that I really like to read books about experiences that I couldn't understand, experiences that I'll never have. And no, this one customer review does not scare me away. I scrolled down and read it, and I will spare you that. It seems like absolute nonsense. A memoir talks about art. Definitely interested in that one. Scroll down a little more, try not to reveal too much too soon, keep some things a mystery. The Secret Lives of Bats, My Adventures with the World's Most Misunderstood Animals. 1 5-star review. Oh, we're doing better here. Okay, to tell you about why I'm interested in this book, besides the fact that it's just about bats, I also want to show you something. There's a blurb from Cy Montgomery. I absolutely love Cy Montgomery. Just like with Helen MacDonald, I will do pretty much whatever she tells me to. It's like that thing when your mom says, well, if your friends jumped off a cliff, would you? And I would say, well, if Helen MacDonald and or Cy Montgomery jumped, then I'm going over. Just this first line in the overview. Few people realize how sophisticated and intelligent bats are. Yes, and how much they want absolutely nothing to do with you. I don't know why everyone considers them so scary. It's essentially a flying hamster, and judging by how many we sold at the pet store that I worked at in my teenage years, then everyone should love these things. Anyway, I would like to read this book on bats. Moving on, The Overstory by Richard Powers. I have heard so many amazing things about this book. I don't read a ton of the really hyped works of literary fiction that go around BookTube, especially prize winners, but this one has always captured my interest because it is about trees and I love nature writing so much, so this is definitely a priority for me. Of course, this is my wish list, so we have something grim on here. The Work of the Dead, A Cultural History of Mortal Remains. This is basically a history of how different cultures have dealt with their dead. I know that some of this I probably will have read in Caitlin Doty's books. She has addressed this topic a lot across her 3 different books. But what I think is going to distinguish this book a little bit from her books is down here in this first line of the second paragraph, talking about how it draws from archaeology, medical tracts, letters, songs, poems, novels, painting, and landscapes. So this definitely seems like more of a cultural examination than it is a straight work of history, so I think it's going to be a good supplement to Caitlin Doty's books. Next is a self-help book called My Friend Fear, Finding Magic in the Unknown. I should give another quick shout out to this site I'm using, Giftful, because what I think a lot of people don't realize about the ability to be able to link to external sites is that you can pick specific editions. Like this is a Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, so if I were to put this on, say, my Amazon wish list, I wouldn't be able to get this specific edition that I want. I don't read a whole lot of self-help books, but this one really appealed to me because it talks about making peace with fear, understanding that fear is an everyday part of life, and learning to work with it versus against it. This is definitely something that I need to work on. I am anxious so much of the time, you can just never tell because I am so stoic. So again, while I normally don't turn to self-help books, this definitely seems like one that I could get something from. Moving toward the end of the list here, we have Heart, A History. This book was written by a cardiologist, and this is a history of what is arguably our most precious organ. From what I read down in the overview, it seems like this book is going to tell different stories of how we came to understand the heart in the way that we do now, how different doctors developed the means by which to do a heart transplant, how different doctors developed the pacemaker. Pretty much everything to do with the human heart. Again, I love medical nonfiction. This is right up my alley. Next is The Mushroom at the End of the World, on the possibility of life in capitalist ruins. I think it was Natalie over at Curious Reader who first talked about this one, and that's how this book ended up on my wish list. The concept of this book is absolutely fascinating, and it also seems multifaceted. It focuses in on one species of mushroom that is considered a delicacy in Japan. It talks about the biology of this mushroom, but also how it travels through the economy. This book is the intersection of two things that I love to learn about, love to think about. Obviously, nature writing, it's very, very represented here on my wish list, but also business, money, the economy, which is a large part of my educational background. This is one I think I'm going to love. Next is Meadow Land, The Private Life of an English Fields. I think Book Depository was the only place I could find this, not entirely surprising. This is another work of nature writing, no surprises there, but the author focuses on one single English meadow and talks about its journey from January to December, all the different seasons, all the different plants that grow there, all the different creatures that visit it. It seems like he structures a narrative from all of that. Next is How to Invent Everything, a survival guide for the stranded time traveler. This is another one that I heard Steve Donahue talk about. Thank you very much, Steve. This is a nonfiction book, but it's also a work of imagination. It imagines if one of us from the present day was able to go back in time, how would we go about inventing things from the modern world back then? I think all of us at one point or another have imagined what it would be like to travel back in time, and I certainly have had the thought, it seems a lot of people have, that it would be cool to invent something that we have today and be the person who invented it and reap all the benefits of being that inventor. I know this book is going to have a lot of science, which I love. It also seems like it's going to be extremely playful. I have a feeling I'm going to read this and then be recommending it to everyone I know. I just really have that gut feeling. And the paperback is a decent price. Oh, but I hate the cover. Oh, no. Okay, we're sticking with the hardback. But you see, that Nook book is too expensive. This book can't. Okay, I'm not going to start complaining. 3 books left. The first is a graphic novel, To Drink and to Eat, Volume 1, Tastes and Tales from a French Kitchen. Can I look inside of this? That's rude. I'm making a quick stop over to Amazon so I can show you inside. Because this is a graphic novel, we need to see the art style. Okay, I had not seen this before. That's amazing. Okay, so this is a culinary memoir told in graphic form, and it seems like there are going to be recipes in here as well. I love food writing. This one's a pretty safe bet. Oh my gosh. Me. Okay. I need this. This is why this is on my wish list. You see, this is just confirming things need to be on my wish list. All right, last 2. The Hidden Lives of Owls, The Science and Spirit of Nature's Most Elusive Birds. I love the first line of this overview is targeting me. In this New York Times bestseller that will appeal to readers of H is for Hawk. I love in every single book where they want to pull in the bird nerds and the fans of literary memoir, they just mention H is for Hawk, and that's like the magic word. Which it is. And let's look at the cover. Oh my god. Okay, not only are they comparing this book to H is for Hawk, but there is a blurb from Cy Montgomery on the cover. I feel personally attacked. This is a natural history of owls, as I'm sure you've guessed, but it also, again, talks about the human relationship with owls, their place within mythology. I need it, basically. And last but not least, The Poison Squad by Deborah Bloom, one chemist's single-minded crusade for food safety at the turn of the 20th century. This is by the author of The Poisoner's Handbook, which is one of my all-time favorite works of nonfiction. And it seems like this is a very similar kind of thing, but instead of talking about the development of forensic science in Prohibition-era New York City, this is going to talk about the creation of food safety at the turn of the 20th century, as said by the subtitle. At the end of the 19th century, food was dangerous. Lethal, even. I know people have their politics about this and that, but let me just go on the record and say that food regulation is really, really important, especially because even people who think that food regulation isn't important will go to their grocery store, pull something off the shelf, and say, well, they couldn't sell it if it wasn't safe, which is only the case if you have food regulation. So I think everyone needs to read this book and understand why food regulation is important.
So those are all the things that are currently on my wish list. I'm sure things will change as I buy things and discover new books that I need to own. I'll put a link to that wish list down in the description box below in case you want to keep up with it. Now that you've seen everything on my wish list, I would really, really appreciate it if down in the comment section below you could let me know which 2 books you think I should buy. And you can give me your reasons if you like. That would be fun. But of course, if you have any other comments or questions about anything you've seen in this video or about anything in general, that can also go in the comment section below. Or if you'd prefer to reach out to me somewhere other than YouTube, I am on a variety of different places on social media, and the links to all of those profiles will be in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.